Hey guys, so I have been doing my practicum since last Tuesday. So this was my second week in the school for one full day in the field between both Canton Middle School and Canton High School. I would say it hasn't been too much of a big adjustment going into this practicum, only because last semester for my intro to school counseling class, I actually shadowed both the high school and middle school counselors at Canton for about 20 to 25 hours throughout the semester. So in that sense, it's kind of nice going into this semester and starting my practicum already having a grasp on things and kind of the way that the counselors work together and what their role is in the school and just kind of how that specific school system works in general. So I felt like I kind of had a leg up in that sense, which was really nice, and made my transition into the practicum smooth. But yeah, so this past Tuesday was a pretty good day. I spent probably almost split time between the high school counselor and the middle school counselor. Because so the way it is at Canton is, so the head counselor for the high school that I'm right now, shadowing right now, but eventually, doing my practicum with, she's supervising me. She is, for grades 9 through 12, and then the middle school counselor is actually grades 7 through 9. So she has all of 7th and 8th, and then her and another counselor split the alphabet for grade 9. So she's, so the middle school counselor is technically kind of in both the middle school and then, the freshman for high school. So that was kind of cool to know, too, that, that's kind of a nice age range where you're middle school, but you still get a taste of, that high school, what high school counseling is all about. So I think that's a cool position to have. But yeah, so on Tuesday, I was able to go between the high school and the middle school throughout the day, pretty much wherever I was needed. So I started the day in the high school, and pretty much since I'd been there, it was probably only around, I guess it must have been like 10:30 a.m. because there was a delay on Tuesday. And so the way that Canton does their delays is actually different than, I know Tori had mentioned. So at Morristown, they pretty much just nix the first 3 classes or whatever, and then you start just straight at third period. The way Canton does it is they just shorten those first few periods, and then eventually the periods become the regular full amount of time, which I thought was a bit bizarre. I see the pros and cons to both sides, but it was bizarre because the classes, like the first class was literally only 10 minutes. It was 10 to 10:12. So I thought that's a little bit bizarre in that sense. So it's like you're not really getting much out of the class. But I also understand, like the high school counselor, Kirsten was kind of just explaining to me how, they do it that way at least, so then students can at least still be present in the class and teachers still can see their students, whether it's to get assignments from their students, to hand out new assignments, to give them any other information that, might be pressing or important. So in that sense, I do actually think it's a good idea that, that it's just shorter classes, even if it is only 12 minutes long, just so that there's still that face-to-face interaction. And like I said, the teachers can hand out any new assignments they might have or get assignments from their students. So that was a cool thing to learn about Canton, and that's how they handle their snow day situations, or delays in general. But so then it was about 10:30, and a student came in to see Kirsten. She was actually looking for the social worker, Miss Randall, but she was not there at the moment. So the student stepped into Kirsten's office and pretty much started to discuss an issue that had transpired the previous Friday. This girl was very upset, and apparently the situation that happened was that on that Friday, her and this boy student had been talking, I guess, after school, and apparently then this girl said that he sexually assaulted her, or inappropriately touched her on school property. And so obviously that's a very huge accusation, and that needs to be investigated. And so pretty much I guess what happened then is over the weekend, I guess the school did look into this, and pretty much, through looking at school security cameras, it looked like the 2 students had gone into the auditorium and were in there for maybe 30 to 60 seconds and then walked out, and everything seemed fine. And so everyone's a bit skeptical about the accusation just because of the time that the students were in the auditorium, and then also, too, just, I guess, the way that their, body language was when they both walked out of the auditorium. Like, the girl seemed fine. She didn't seem like anything was off. I know that's not always, a dead giveaway. But then apparently this girl also has a history of lying and smudging the truth and just has a lot of mental health issues. So pretty much the whole issue of why she was upset was because she, said this happened. And then all of her friends now are saying that they don't believe her because this guy, the guy who she accused, is saying that, she's a liar, she's crazy, she's making stuff up, I don't know what she's talking about. And now this girl's friends are kind of buying into what this guy is saying. So she's just really upset, saying that no one's believing me. And so it was kind of that awkward situation where, you as a counselor, you need to, still like validate what she's saying, because that is a big accusation. If that's true, you don't ever want to invalidate that. But also knowing her history, it's, is this actually true? And just with the evidence that was coming through with the videos and the interactions, it didn't really seem like something actually happened. So they're in a bit of a predicament in that sense. But so this girl has been in and out of the psych center for the past few years. Her family, like her older siblings, both of them have also, one's graduated and I think one's a senior, have also been in and out of the psych center. So there's kind of a lot of mental health issues, like history within that family. So it's just kind of a tough situation with how this was, how this is going to be handled. But there seemed to be no evidence of it. But again, that's an accusation that you have to, especially as a school, you have to take very seriously. You have to look into it, and at this point, it doesn't seem like the facts are pointing towards it, but pretty much it was one of those situations where, the girl, should be upset if it did happen, and she should be upset with her friends if they, if it did actually happen and they're not backing her up. But so that's why pretty much we were just like, if you are telling the truth, then, then you have to just be okay with that, and if they're your real friends, they'll come around. And if not, as long as you know that you're telling the truth, then, you should be happy with, that, and you can just know that you can't control, other people's emotions or what they're saying. But what you can do is just, if it did occur, then, we're going to get to the bottom of it. The school's going to fight for that. And so it's just interesting to kind of see that, like, level of severity of, a student coming in with that type of issue. But she definitely, yeah, so it was definitely an interesting situation. But so then I went over to the middle school for a bit, and these two girls came in during their lunchtime, which I actually went over there initially because usually every Tuesday from 12 to 1, it happens to be a popular lunchtime. There's typically this anxiety group that Michelle, the middle school counselor, runs, and usually she said it's pretty popular, but unfortunately on this Tuesday no one showed up, and she thinks it's just because, it had been an extended weekend because of MLK Day, and then with the delay, students were probably wanting to catch up with each other and just, talk during their lunch, so they probably didn't come to that group, which stinks. I was looking forward to kind of being, collaborative and, interacting and observing kind of what's going on in those type of group sessions, and, how Michelle ran it, and how, it was, facilitated, and kind of just the way that group worked. So I'm looking forward to hopefully attending that group this upcoming Tuesday. But so pretty much then these two girls, I guess it was right after lunch period ended, they came in, which they were actually in Spanish class. But so they both came in, and apparently they're frequent flyers and kind of causing a bit of ruckus, in the fact that they're very outspoken, and they have an issue, I guess, with their Spanish teacher, and they kind of came in and were both just kind of talking poorly about their teacher and saying that she doesn't care, and that she is targeting them, and that she's rude. And then they were, complaining about the students in the class and saying that students, there's smell, and, the teacher said that, one of them was being, like, rude to the other students, and the girl was like, no, I wasn't, I was just commenting on the odor. But that's something too, then, Michelle was like, well, you can't, that's, like, mean, you can't just say something like that, like, you don't know what someone's been through or what, their situation is. And then she also was like, one, middle school boys, that's normal. It's normal to have body odor. And second, too, though, like, you don't know someone's situation. So, you shouldn't really ever be judging someone for smelling, and especially out loud or rolling your eyes. And so we kind of talked a lot about, because the one girl is very, very outspoken and will say what's on her mind. The other girl, it's more the nonverbal cues. that, the rolling the eyes, the hair flip, that, it still makes it clear that you're giving an attitude to your teacher or being rude to your classmates. So we kind of just talked through that and just, had to discuss, these are the things that you need to do. You need to be respectful in class. And if you have an issue with, this person, you need to then, this is the way to best handle it. So we kind of talked to these two girls for a bit of time. And then I went back to the high school. Before I went back to the high school, I actually spoke with Michelle a lot about two different families who apparently they're both in similar situations where they have the parents, like the students, have been out of school for 20 days. So they kind of hit that cap where, if you've already been out of school, like at Canton for 20 days, then, there's the potential for those referrals. Some have been excused, some haven't. And again, they, kind of goes back to the medical notes and, the parent excusing the child, saying that they are sick. So technically that is excused, but when you hit 20, it really starts affecting the students. And the younger one, so in the one family, I think it's a 6th grader, and then one that's even younger, and they're like doing okay in school, like their grades are still fine. But there's one that's a 9th grader that's missed about 20 classes, has missed 20 classes, sorry. And her grades are really low. She's kind of has like some behavioral issues as well. So kind of being out of school for this long of a period of time is really hurting her. And so that's the type of situation where they need to decide, Michelle's been trying to get contact with the parents, and then she's going to speak with Miss Randall, the school social worker, to kind of figure out, well, we might need to do a referral here because this girl is a freshman in high school. You can't be missing, that many classes in freshman year when that material really builds on each other in a lot of those core classes. So that was something that, Miss Randall actually came in and we discussed between, me, her, and Michelle, just kind of what that protocol might have to look like if, the parents don't get back to them, and if this, the students, but especially the 9th grader, don't start coming to school and don't stop missing school, because they're kind of at that point where, like I said, the referral and a hotline might have to happen. So that's kind of, we'll see what happens with that. But then the last part of my day, I went into the high school, but still was with Michelle because she is, like I said, the 7th through 9th grade counselor, and she has half of 9th grade, and so this one student who's a freshman falls under, her half of the alphabet, and he has been struggling a lot this year with his academics. His grades have just been pretty poor, and, they really weren't that hot either in 7th or 8th grade, so he's kind of been, I guess, like a flagged student, just in the sense of grades have never really been that great. A great kid, really nice. Teachers always have nothing but nice things to say about him in that regard, but his academics have been really low. So he's kind of been flagged in that sense. So Michelle called an IST meeting, which is an in-school support team meeting. So that was really cool to be able to be a part of that last Tuesday. And so pretty much what that entails is it's, the counselor sends out a letter to the parents saying, hi, we're going to have your son or daughter meet with us for this meeting to discuss, their current status of where they're at academically, and then to kind of make a game plan pretty much to see how can we help, your child get back on the right track and, put themselves in the best position. So you send that to the parents. The parents can choose to come or not to come to the meeting. If they don't come, then Michelle would then follow up after the meeting with the student to say, hey, this is what we discussed, this is what the game plan was, this is what all the teachers had to say, and that. But so for this meeting, both parents did come, and all teachers attend this meeting as well. Michelle attends the meeting, so the school counselor, and then we also had a woman from the resource room attend the meeting. She is not, like, this one student does not go to resource room, but I think it's something that they wanted to consider adding him to, so they had her there as well. So pretty much it was cool to see how this meeting went down, that pretty much Michelle kind of facilitated the whole meeting and almost worked as like an in-between with the parents and the teachers. So it was cool to see her in action in that regard, and just how each teacher would go around the room and kind of say what they've seen in that student, throughout the year in their class, and, whether it's academically, an effort. And so I think the kind of conclusion that a lot of teachers had was he's nice, he's a pleasure to have in class, but he's forgetful. He forgets his books and his binders and all of that. And he just doesn't seem engaged or like he cares, and he just doesn't hand in homeworks. Literally hasn't handed in a homework in one class, in his social studies class or his global class for, I think it's been like 10 assignments. So in that regard, it's kind of like, an issue. So then they kind of came up with a game plan. We're like, okay, well, we're going to make him stay after class, after school every day, Monday through Friday, to stay with the teacher and get work done. So that was kind of a goal that everyone came up with, which was great. But so that was kind of my first or second day in the school for the practicum, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to see what next week and the rest of the semester holds.